I asked you guys to send me your high school DxD hot takes again, and I got a whole bunch of submissions. I think this is the most I've ever gotten. So thank you for that. And we gotta go pretty fast if we want to get all of these done. So like always, I'll start with something light because there's no reason to just go all out immediately. So the first one is from Insbro GD, or however you say that. And it says season 1 has the best lighting and atmosphere. And I'm gonna have to disagree with both of these, especially with the atmosphere one. I actually think season 1 has one of the worst atmospheres, and that's mainly because of how like premature it feels in the series. Season 2 definitely has the best atmosphere in my opinion, and that's because of the tone and the art style, and even through just the lighting. It has a way darker and more realistic atmosphere for the world it's set in. And lighting, I mean, I guess you can make that argument. I still think season 2 has better lighting too, but I mean, that's just subjective. The next one is from The Funniest, and it says, it's weird how in season 4, Issei referring to Rias as president is made a big deal, even though he calls her Rias throughout the series. And I think this is the only problem that the dub has. This is the one mistake that I can find in the dub, is Issei calling her Rias throughout the series. Because it makes 100% sense in the light novel. He calls her president the whole time throughout the light novel. And I'm assuming it's the same with the sub, so it's not that it doesn't make sense. It's just like a translation issue. But I did used to think this when I was only watching the anime, so I guess I'll disagree with that one. The next one is from Baka Sensei. And look at you, Baka Sensei, my very first member. Shout out to Baka Sensei for buying my membership. If you guys ever want to support me, join the membership thing on YouTube. I'll probably put a link to it in my description. It's 99 cents. And as you can see in this comment for Baka Sensei, you get to use weird pictures in your comments. And you get a little picture next to your name. Pretty cool, huh? And also, I will follow you back on Instagram, all that stuff. So please, if you have the money or if you have the time, it's $1 per month. But anyways, back to the actual hot take. It says, in all caps, not every girl needs to be with Issei. And I 100% agree with this one. I think at first, I'm perfectly fine with all these girls coming to Issei, because most of them at least had a reason to be there. But as the series goes on, we start to add people who really shouldn't be there, and people who I think would be more interesting if they weren't with Issei, like Roswaisa, I talked about it in my last video, but I really wanted to see her with Azazel. So I definitely agree with that one. And then the next one says, Azazel is a top 3 character in the light novel. He's been such a good character. He's been relevant. He's been consistent. He's been helpful. He's probably been the most useful character besides Issei and maybe Kiba in the entire light novel. So I definitely agree with that one. The next one is from Brennan, and it says High School DxD should have ended at season 3. The ending of season 3 feels like the studio knew they weren't going to be making another season. Season 4 required a whole episode just to retcon season 3, and now the show is kind of running off the light novel canon. And also it'll take way too long to adapt the light novel anyway. And I definitely disagree with this one. I don't think there was any way that the series ended at season 3. Season 3 kind of messed everything up, and I don't think it would have been a right ending for it to end at season 3, because that's not even an actual ending of the series. If you would have said season 4, it should end at season 4, I would get it, because season 4 actually feels like a conclusion. It's kind of the end to the Issei Rias story. It would just be disrespectful to the source material to end it right there at season 3. Right now in season 4 would be the best time to end it. So yeah, I'll disagree with that one. The next one is from Inferno Torch, and it says, I'd really love to see a bit more character development between Issei and Zenobia as a pair. And I agree with this one too. I feel like Zenobia is the most similar girl to Issei. All the other girls have like almost a completely different personality to Issei, but Zenobia is kind of like on that same side, so it kind of leaves you wanting more between them. And I'm sure they get their little moments in the light novel, but I feel like there's just a lot of characters to handle right now, so I'm hoping to see more from them. So I definitely agree with that one. The next one is from Issei Midoriya, and it says, I actually liked the twice critical idea that they did in the anime. It was a good start for Issei, as it didn't automatically make him powerful. And it gave a pretty cool reveal when Issei defeated Rainier and it was revealed that he had the boosted gear. And I agree with this one too. One of like the little things I liked about season 1 was the mystery behind Issei's power. So them kind of hiding it at first by saying like it was a twice critical, I thought that was pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure I've already said it in a previous video, but the scene where they revealed that he has the sacred gear is a pretty good scene. So I definitely agree with that one. The next one is from Mythic Shadow, and there's multiple. The first one is TNK really dropped the ball with the anime, especially with season 3. The only good thing they did was Juggernaut Drive and OSCs. And I'll mostly disagree with this one. I agree that they dropped the ball with season 3, but I can't discredit them for their first 2 seasons. Their first 2 seasons were really good, so I guess I'll disagree with that one. The next one is the season 4 studio should have never gotten permission to do season 4 because they had no prior experience. And this one, one, I guess I'll also disagree with. I mean, obviously they could have found a better studio, but I don't think the studio that they got did a bad job with it. I mean, I felt like no matter what, the art style was going to look different. And I mean, of course, a studio like Madhouse would have been better and it would have looked better. But again, I'm not just going to discredit them when I think they did a pretty good job still. The next one is, in terms of character development, Rias doesn't go anywhere compared to all the other characters, basically. And this one I also agree with. I think Rias has like some of the highest potential in the series as a character and her power. And it really is a shame just slowly watching them drop the ball with her. Watching her go from like this really strong character and a good leader to becoming that damsel in distress. You really hate to see it. So I agree with that one. The next one is, when they insulted Issei for not realizing Rias liked him, it was really out of character for them. And I'll disagree with this one too. These characters watch these two clearly like each other. And then Issei has a moment as dumb as that. I mean, I think it would make anyone mad. I mean, it made the fans mad. It gets to a point where it's just annoying. So I don't think it was out of character at all. And it's not like these characters don't check Issei. So I disagree with that one. And then the last one says, Sona and her peers are so underdeveloped compared to the main crew. And I mean, I think that's just a given since they're not the main characters. And they're not even like the main side characters either. So of course they're going to be underdeveloped. So I'll agree with that one. The next one is from Braylon Williams. And there's multiple again. The first one says, as cool as Konoko is, I can't get around the fact that she isn't hot whatsoever. She's adorable at best. I don't know what you mean by can't get around the fact. I mean, I guess I agree that Konoko isn't cute or attractive. And I don't think that's really a bad thing since I do like Konoko's character. But I'll agree with that one. The second one says, High School DxD's fan service works very well. And this one I'll also agree with. I think for the most part, High School DxD is able to implement its fan service in a pretty good way. There's really only a few times where it's just a little distracting and where it shouldn't really be there. I think I already said this one earlier. But when Asuya dies, her top comes off. Like, it's just kind of little times like that where it's just unnecessary. So I agree with that one. The next one is Zenobia is better than Rias. And I mean, it depends what we're talking about. Zenobia is definitely a better fighter than Rias. I think she's more likable than Rias. But as far as I am in the series, I still think Rias is a better character overall, as she should be. So I'll disagree with that one. The next one says, I get it's a harem anime, but I honestly wanted to see more dudes in the main cast. And this one I kind of agree with. I mean, it's not like they're lacking in male characters. They just need to give their male characters more screen time. But I do think the series could benefit from there being like one more male character in the main cast. So I'll agree with that one. And number 5 says, Issei doesn't deserve to be slandered because he's a pervert. And this one I'll disagree with too. I mean, obviously you either like Issei's perversion or you hate it. I think it's kind of distracting, but I also think they are able to make it funny sometimes. It kind of just depends on the scene. But for people who watch it for like the first time, I think they kind of have every right to slander Issei, because then I can really see them being annoyed by it, and I can see it being a turnoff for them. The next one is another one from The Funniest, and it says season 2, then season 1, then season 4, and then season 3. And also Kokebill is the greatest wasted potential in the show. I agree with the Kokebill thing. I don't know if I would call him the greatest wasted potential, but he is definitely wasted potential. So I agree with that one. And then for the seasons ranked, I guess you'll have to find out some other day, because that's going to end up being a video later on. But the next one's from Thailand the Gamer, and it says most of the villains in High School DxD are poorly written or underutilized. And I mostly agree with this one. Basically every villain in the series is kind of bad. And I said mostly agree because you put Rainier here as one of the throwaway villains, when Rainier is the complete opposite of a throwaway villain. But yeah, most of their villains are pretty weak and pretty trash, and it is kind of disappointing. But chill out on Rainier. She actually does something in the story and affects the main characters. Definitely wouldn't call her a throwaway villain, so I'll agree with that one. Next one is from Sean Benjamin Long, and it says season 3 is underrated and it had an okay ending. It's hard to say. I'll put it like this. Season 3 is overhated by people who read the light novel, but at the same time it's overrated by people who only watch the anime. I think you have to find a balance, because even though it did go off script, I think they still did do a pretty good job at making it watchable. I mean, it's not like I hate watching season 3, and I don't want to make it seem like season 3 was just the worst thing ever. Especially when they had like the greatest audible ever with the Juggernaut drive scene. They completely saved that scene. So I definitely agree with that one. The next one is from Peter Fan, and it says season 3 would be much better if they just added more episodes instead of removing so much from the light novel. And I agree with this one too. Trying to adapt 3 light novels into 12 episodes is just not happening. And you're going to end up having to skip over things. So just making the season like 15 15 episodes, 16 episodes. I mean, 24 would be the best, obviously. Just doing that would have made this possible, and it would have made for a way better watching experience where things don't feel rushed, things aren't skipped over. So I definitely agree with that one. The next one is from JJ, and it says people don't realize how bad the trauma Rainier placed on Issei was. And also congrats on the 1K. Thank you for that. And I also agree with this one. And I hate to keep bringing up the light novel, but even I didn't realize how bad the Rainier trauma was until I started reading the light novel and seeing how early the signs actually were. Because in the anime, you don't really start to see signs until like season 3. I'm still watching season 2, so I'll try paying attention for little signs. But for the most part, there aren't really any obvious signs until season 3. But in the light novel, there are like so many just subtle little hints that are just like, wow, is that Rainier's trauma right there? And it's just done a lot better. So I definitely agree with that one. The next one is from Nakruma, FNAF and Weeb Universe. And I guess this isn't a hot take. It's just, what if High School DxD were to air on Toonami or Adult Swim? And I don't think it would. I think it's too inappropriate. The next one is from Alexander Ramos. And it says, I like how season 3's version of Issei was saved from his Juggernaut drive state instead of fixed. And I also agree with this one too. I think I've already talked about this one, but I really don't like the idea of Issei being saved by a song, and it's just not a good moment. It ruins the moment, it ruins the tension. So I agree with that one. The next one is from Andre Messi, and it says, I don't know why people are hating on season 4's art, because I think it's good. And I agree with that one. I get thinking the art is worse, but I don't really get just not liking the art at all, because I don't really think the art looks bad. I think it actually looks pretty decent for the most part. I think they upgraded some character designs. I think they started putting more effort into the fights. So I definitely wouldn't say that it's just bad. And I think people who say it's bad are overreacting. So I definitely agree with that one. The next one is from Sazu Edits, and they're all about Orphis or Ophis. I don't really know how to say that name. I think Orphis sounds better. Anyways, it says, Orphis is one of the most underrated characters in High School DxD. I feel like Orphis is more overrated than underrated. I mean, by the fans, I think you can make a case for underrated, but by the characters in the show, I mean, you would think this is the most important character ever, but that's not really the case. So I guess I'll disagree with that one. The next one is Orphis has the best potential for a side story besides Volley, and I also disagree with this one too. I think there are a whole bunch of characters who could have a side story that would be better than Orphis. I mean, you already said Volley. I think Soso, I think Azazel, even a character like Sir Zex, Cyroorg. There's a lot that I would watch over Orphis, so I disagree with that one. And the other one is Orphis is wasted potential, and I already talked about this one, I guess, in the first take. But yeah, I agree with that one. I don't really know about In the Light novel yet, since I'm not that far yet, but they really do hype her up to like an unimaginable level, and she's just not hitting that hype at all. So I agree with that one. The next one is from Lord Easy, and it says Zenobia is the best written female character, and that's definitely not true. Akino's better written, Gonoko's better written, Rias is better written, Asya is better written. I think all those characters are better written than Zenobia, but Zenobia is still cool. She's one of the more likable characters from that group, but I'm gonna have to disagree with that one. The next one is from Yep, and it says, why couldn't Luigi from Super Mario Brothers join High School DxD? And I don't know, probably because he's ugly. I don't know. The next one is from King Gecko, and it says, Freed should have gotten a Sacred Gear and unlocked Balance Breaker for it. And I think this is kind of interesting, and that would be kind of interesting, but I think it would be better if Freed was just able to unlock a new power by himself without like a Sacred Gear. I think Freed had a lot of potential to be that reoccurring villain, that Frieza of the series, you know, that viral of the series. That's who Freed should have been. And I think it definitely could have been cool if he had his own Sacred Gear. So I'll agree with that one. The next one is from Anthony Segan, and it says, Issei being a pervert is true, but when he gets into a situation with one of the girls, he gets flustered. And I'm assuming you don't like that? So why is Issei always so reluctant to make the move, even though he's the perverted one? The answer is obviously Rainier's trauma. And this kind of ties back to one of the other hot takes I just got, where it said people don't realize how much trauma Rainier implemented on Issei. Because now he doubts basically everything. He doubts the girl's feelings. He doubts himself, all through Rainier's trauma. And I know earlier I did just say that it's harder to find the trauma in the anime, but now I'm just remembering about the video I made over season 1 and all of the little signs that I found. So the reason why Issei doesn't ever make a move
is because of the trauma from Rainier.
And I think this is kind of shown in the anime. Maybe I'm just pointing out a random scene, but I feel like Issei was a little bit more aggressive with Rainier when he was on a date with her than he is when he talks to the other girls. Like, he was all like, I'm gonna get to kiss her, I'm gonna hold her hand. He grabbed her hand, all that stuff. The next one is from Quint, and it says, need more males. I get it's a harem series, but the males we do have are great. And this is similar to one I had earlier, but I think we need more males that we actually care about, because we got a lot of male characters. I mean, off the top of my head, I think I can name more male characters than female characters. But the thing is, all the important characters are the female characters. So I think we need to focus a little bit more on the male characters so we can care more about them. And like I said earlier, I think introducing another male character to come in and do something would be cool too. So I'll agree with that one.
The next one is from Johnson Hauser, and it says Issei is an overrated protagonist, and his perversion is a big turnoff. Again, I can see why his perversion is a turnoff. Even I'm turned off by it sometimes. Even when I'm watching, I'm like, okay, bro, you're going a little too far. The joke is a little overplayed now. We can go back to the story. So I get that part. But I don't think I would call Issei overrated, kind of because he gets a little too much hate for me to call him overrated. I think Issei is a well-written character, or a well-enough written character. It's not like he's just like the worst character ever. But I mean, at the same time, he's not like a perfectly written character. He still has flaws, he still lacks some things that other characters have. So for that one, I'll disagree with it. The next one is from Mr. Westcott, and it says, we need more lore on angels and fallen angels. And I agree with this one too. I think we should definitely get like a little side story about the fallen angels, maybe get a little story about Azazel, and we should definitely get something about the angels. I mean, that dude Michael is just doing nothing over there basically. I forget Michael's even in the series. And it makes it even crazier when you think like God died. That's like a crazy concept, and it should make the angel side more interesting, but they just don't explore that, and it's kind of disappointing. So I definitely agree with that one. The next one is from General Society, and it says, I'm going to put this in basketball terms. Issei is the LeBron James, and the ORC is the 2018 Cavaliers, which means Issei is carrying them. And I'm gonna have to kind of disagree with you on this one. Issei is the strongest character on the team, but let's not act like the other members just aren't doing anything. I mean, Rias and Akado aren't doing anything, but everyone else actually contributes to the team and their fights. I mean, Rias actually is a leader, and she does give leadership, so really Akado's the only one who doesn't do anything. But I mean, we could even just look at the rating game with Cyro Org. Issei doesn't beat Cyro Org if he has a Phoenix tier, which means Issei doesn't beat Cyro Org if Zenobia, Kiba, and Roswaisa don't hold him off and cut off his arm. But those guys aren't able to beat them if Gasper doesn't sacrifice himself to beat the previous opponents. So it all comes back together to where everybody got their moment in that fight besides Rakado and Rias, and they're all still useful, especially Kiba. Kiba is like the most useful ORC member besides Issei. So I'll disagree with that one. Let's not make it seem like these guys are just some bums out here. A better comparison would be Steph Curry on the Warriors or Jokic on the Nuggets. Because yeah, these are definitely the best players, but he didn't do it all by himself. The next one is from The Dark Author, and it says, I think the whole What MITU scene with Issei and Rias was done horribly, because these characters should have been able to recognize that Issei was traumatized by Rainier, which is obviously the reason why Issei said that in that scene. And this one, I mean, I kinda agree. I think that they could have done a better scene than this, because I think this scene kinda makes Issei look bad, even if he is traumatized by Rainier. But at the same time, I also don't blame the characters, like I said earlier, because it's kind of like an instinct reaction. I think the thing was, they were kind of like in that moment where it was like, wow, he actually just said this. But then after a while, I mean, they literally come back and are like, oh, we get it now. It's because of Rainier, right? So I think it kind of makes sense, but I think they could have done a better scene to show Rainier's trauma. Mainly just because that scene just makes me cringe a little too much. I think that's why I start blaming Issei for it, even though it does make sense in the context of the Rainier trauma thing. But man, it's just hard for me to defend him when I have to cringe every time I watch season 4 because of that. And that's all I'm gonna do for today. I got so many requests, like it's actually insane. I just can't fit these all into one video, so I'll finish this video right here, and then the next video will be up tomorrow. Also, I just wanted to thank everyone for the takes that were submitted, because there were some really good takes in here. These are probably the best hot takes we've had so far, so thank you for that. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.